This conference will now be recorded.
Ta-da! And also it should be mentioned that any information in the chat is also going to be saved as part of open meeting law. So just a reminder that everything is being captured. So I'm going to go ahead and start with open forum. If anybody has anything they'd like to bring to open forum. Scott?
I have a couple of things that I was looking at in response to diversifying the workforce in Westford. And one of the things that's is slightly controversial in that one of the ways of keeping a workforce less diverse is to only hire people from the town, or to make it easier for people from the town to work in the positions. And I was looking at our personnel policy, and it talks about internal posting of jobs, and where jobs can be posted out externally, but it says the position may be done concurrently, internally and externally. And I think that's probably not strong enough language if we agree that hiring first from internally makes a less diverse workforce. I've read a lot of different things about that, and I could go into deeper conversation, but that was one thing I saw. And I looked at the mass diversity, went to mass.gov and looked at what they have, and there were two places that seem like they're doing something about diversity. One is the Mass Trial Court, and they have a strong program for diversity. And one of the things that they do is an annual diversity report. And that is something that allows you to see where you're at in terms of diversity. And I'm not sure how hard it is to do that, but it's something that we might suggest to the town. And the other is a CLAS, and I think it's a healthcare program, and it talks about collecting diversity data and how important it is. And that's also on the website. I downloaded this stuff, and I can share it with whoever's interested, or I can put it with our stuff. But those are the two things I looked at in terms of making the workforce or the town more diverse.
Thanks, Scott. I love that idea of an annual diversity report. I think that's certainly one of the things we should look at in terms of our recommendation to the town should be really keeping a close eye on tracking that data and trying to determine where we're at and where we'd like to be. And I think it's so interesting that you mentioned, you don't know like what would go into creating that or that workload. And something that someone said in a conversation I had today, which I think is really relevant, is rather than looking at what it costs, we should look at what we could gain from that process. And I think that is definitely very applicable in this case. Yeah, thank you. That's a fantastic idea. I think the internal posting conversation is certainly one that we maybe could have with the HR department to better understand that practice. Because I'm sure that probably there's some sort of good intent behind it, but just like you said, the impact may very well be a less diverse workforce. And so it may be a situation of trying to explore if there's some sort of intent they'd like to get at, if there's a different way to do that in a way that doesn't have a disproportionate effect. That sounds great. So that's definitely something to follow up on. Anjali?
So I wanted to add to that Scott's comment. One is that the practice is more like synonymous or something that is practiced in most of the private organizations too, where any job is posted internally as well as externally. But at the same time, even when you are promoting the jobs internally, how is it advertised? Where is it advertised? That is also something to look at. Because when you look at the demographics of Westford as a town, we are a pretty diverse town, right? But the question here is the people who live here, how do they come across the job postings, and how we can make our job postings being more visible, let's put it that way, to the residents so that they can apply for those positions. So that needs to be looked at, and maybe that can help. And I think Anita has a point to add.
They do list where they post it. They said they have a list of different places, and it's not limited to those places. So, and whether those are the right places, the library, the highway department, Cameron Senior Center, school administration building, town hall, water department, recreation department, police department, fire department, town website, and email. So
Right, they are, you can sign up for them too, but maybe that needs to be published better. Anita does have her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Anita.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting conversation and something that I've thought about before too. And something that I learned was just that the town side actually doesn't, like, we don't have a lot of turnover. We don't hire as frequently, I think, as people think. But there's much more hiring, especially this year on the school side. But I still wonder, like, what can we do in terms of the culture, the work culture in town and with our town staff that would be more welcoming for when we do hire, in addition to making sure we have all of our ducks in a row of how we're advertising it, how we're wording the job postings and stuff itself. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I think that's such an important point, because I think too often people focus on recruitment without ensuring retention by looking at kind of that existing culture and seeing if that's going to be welcoming and supportive. So I think those things kind of have to go hand in hand. So thank you for bringing that up. And part of that may be even just trying to elicit some sort of data survey, something like that, to current town employees to try and understand what that culture is that's in place. That's great.
So
go ahead, Anjali.
To add to what Scott just said, and I'm just thinking on my feet right now, as he said that the jobs could be posted externally and how we could actually hire more diverse people. I think that is again a great idea if we can leverage the private websites that may not cost us anything, like LinkedIn. People really go to LinkedIn like crazy these days. That's the place they go for the job postings, or Indeed, or maybe some more local, maybe local websites that we will have to look at that will be able to attract or make the job postings more visible and attract more diverse candidates. So I believe that if we have to take Scott's idea to the next level, is that will be that what are those forums where we can post the jobs externally.
Yeah, I think definitely. So later on our agenda, I think we're going to talk about kind of where we go from here. And it sounds like we should definitely have a contingency of people who follow up with HR in the town, because that sounds like a really important area of focus.
And Pam
excellent.
is very willing to talk to anybody. When I asked her for the her pamphlets that she hands out, she's very willing to meet with this group or answer any questions.
Nancy, I just wanted to add there that I actually wanted to talk to her just because I also wanted to understand the existing processes of any kind of training or documentation on diversity and inclusion. and where her mind is. So maybe I can partner with somebody here on the team, and then we can schedule a meeting with her, or we could invite her to our next meeting, whatever the members actually feel is feasible and
Or
beneficial.
both. Yeah, or both.
Yeah.
Or both. Yeah.
Well, what about the idea of Scott and Anjali, you two trying to connect with Pam? How does that sound?
Sure.
Okay,
We can,
great.
you and I can put your, I have your email. I'll email you and we'll try to work out some way.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great, Scott.
Awesome. So that's, Madonna, you can record that as one of the action items. I know that Mamata wanted us to have like action items on the minutes. So Anjali and Scott are going to follow up with Pam in HR. Awesome. Great. Any other open forum items?
I do see other towns on LinkedIn, but I don't see Westford listed on LinkedIn. I just took a quick glance. So that is a good place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, hold on,
The
let
two job
me,
openings now listed under job opportunities. Last time I looked, when you go to look at the job postings, they're all older ones, but the job
Right.
opportunities, there were two, and I'm not sure how they're advertised besides on the website.
just going to share, sorry I didn't share this earlier, where we are on our agenda. Let's go ahead and try and get these meeting minutes from last time taken care of. So we're at the approval of meeting minutes. So everyone should have received the draft minutes from Madonna. I sent that out on email. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay.
So I
So we have our
had a suggestion for a change there, Jenny. That was that where my name was listed, that I would actually retrieve the town policies. Actually, that was Nancy. So Nancy's name should have been there. I will have
okay.
to
Which part is that under?
Oh.
Is it lower?
It's right there. 720. Andy Ashford suggested we review existing DEI of our town.
This right here?
Yeah. What is label?
Okay. And so that should be Nancy?
So that
that
was
what you're
me.
saying?
No, that was me,
Okay.
that I was reviewed, but I think my name is somewhere that says that I will gather those documents, and that should have been Nancy. So I will look through. Just give me a second.
And for the attendees, Acting Chief Mark Chambers was on also. So with a guest, he should be listed there
Okay.
for the community. We have it.
When we have meetings that are in a space, are all the attendees from the town, I mean, the people that are not on the committee listed?
Well, we have Diane Wood, we have John Cunningham. Typically at any other board or committee meeting, we'd list our guests that were there. So, and we do it on Zoom also on all our other meetings. So
So
I
like
don't
when
see
the
why.
selectmen's meeting, the guests are also listed?
It depends if they interact with the selectmen, if they're there for something specific on it, yes.
Okay.
They don't list everybody in the room, but any board or committee meeting that there's people there that take part of the housing, affordable housing, all the people that sign on get listed as guests.
So the fourth sentence right here on the second page, this one should have been Nancy.
Okay. So right here, we'll gather information on training existing documentation. That should be Nancy. That's in the,
And give
that's
to
the
us.
720.
Right.
You have to enable editing, Jenny. You have to enable editing if you're editing on at the moment.
Oh yeah, I'm actually not editing it. What we're gonna do is Madonna's gonna take down the notes when we kind of say what all, if we're gonna accept it with these modifications, and then, because if you notice it's still a draft copy, and she'll clean it up before we have it posted. So I'm not gonna edit it live right now. Okay.
So if there's nothing else, we can take a motion to approve as amended.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I feel like someone had brought something up to me earlier over email.
I just, there was a sentence about something I said, and I don't know, I don't remember saying it, but that's, if I said it, I said it. It's,
I do think Madonna goes back and rewatches the video, and I know that sometimes I forget everything I say too.
yes.
I
said it, but then I realized I don't remember.
Okay.
Scott,
Well,
Scott, was it impressive though? Let's keep it if it's impressive.
It said
yeah,
that
I mean,
I said that diversifying workforces had already started. I'm just not sure what I was talking about.
oh, yes, that was. Sorry, I hope I'm not making anyone motion sick with my scrolling.
Just a little.
Sorry.
Doesn't matter. It's fine the way it is.
Okay. Oh yeah, here it is. As long as you're comfortable, we can rephrase it if you want to better convey your intent.
It's fine. I mean, it's a nothing sentence anyway, so it's not.
All right. Any other adjustments that people would like to throw out there? Okay, so I have the addition of acting Chief of Police Mark Chambers addition under community members in attendance, and on page 2 in the 4th item that Anjali's name should be changed to Nancy's name. So do I have a motion to approve with those amendments?
So
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, is there I'm trying to, okay, so I'm trying to remember how Eric always says this. Is there anyone who wishes to vote to not approve them?
It's unanimous.
Okay. All right. Was there anyone who wanted to abstain? Okay, so that's a unanimous. Excellent. I will stop sharing that. So Madonna will make those changes and then submit for the town clerk to post. Thank you, Madonna, for being an excellent secretary after a little gentle coaxing to take that on. We appreciate it.
Jenny, you're
okay,
all
so, yep.
You're all broken up.
How am I now?
That was the whole sentence. Is it just me or is she broken up to everybody?
She's breaking up.
Yeah, I got the same thing, Frank. I was about to ask.
All right. Nancy, why don't you take the next agenda item, number 4, and I'm going to try and reconnect on a different network.
All right. So
you're fine right now. Jenny, you're fine right now.
Oh, I'm okay now?
Yeah, you seem
Yeah.
good.
Perfect. The noise is gone.
All right.
It's perfect.
It depends on how many of my children are playing Roblox at a time, apparently. Probably one just dropped off. Sorry about that. So let me go ahead and share the agenda. So we actually kind of previewed this a little bit during open forum, but updates on communications with town boards, departments, committees. So Scott already updated on some of the homework that he did. Nancy, you kind of mentioned as well some of the stuff. Did you want to mention some more about some of the documentation you had pulled?
So I talked to the town clerk, Patty Doobie, and she forwarded the packets that are given to new board and committee members, which it's not a lot. I mean, the ethics that you have to take, and that's really about it. I spoke to Pam Hicks and collected the personnel that she hands out to all new hires. And then I spoke, and I think it's Provisional Chief Chambers, and he had quite a bit of information. Some of it he put me on the town website or the police website to download, but he actually pulled apart a training manual that they have that's still paper and scanned it in and sent it to us late today, so I'm sorry, Anjali. A lot of information, but the only boards and committees, the only one I didn't call was the school, because I think somebody else was going to get the information from the school. But the only department that has any racial training, diversity training, racial bias is the police department, and it is mandatory from the police academy through every year they have mandatory. I was pleasantly surprised and impressed with the amount of diversity training they do have. So that's where I'm at. I did send everything to Anjali, who was going to put it all together, so we can review it from there.
If I have
That's
to
great.
share my summary, with you, I could say that from the town, I didn't really get much information. The one that you shared, Nancy, you were right, and Anita is right too. The information or the trainings on the DEI, I think needs to be looked at, and that's why the next meeting with the Director of Human Resources or the HR personnel here in the town will help us to better understand that. I can talk about the trainings and the brochure, the information that police is being given. They do have a small document, which is kind of few pages on the diversity and inclusion. In the summary, it talks about that the expectation from them is not to racially profile anyone and treat everybody equally and whatnot. So they are being given that kind of a training, which is definitely a good information. My question here would be that when we have the selection committees like the one that was created recently as a superintendent preliminary search committee, which I was part of, we were not given any kind of documentation that said about the diversity and inclusion or any kind of training that would say, how do you eliminate biases, or how would you have your own ideas, right? So I believe that there were some opportunities there, because just the expectation that anyone who is basically being selected for this would automatically have that information. I think that's an over expectations from everyone. I have been doing human resources work for 15 years, so I'm well aware, because that's what my job is. But I cannot expect the same thing from everyone from different backgrounds. So even though the committee is pretty good, I want to really assure you that committee is very well aware about including the diverse population or the candidates and whatnot. But there's still, I feel that there's still some opportunity to talk about biases, which isn't really based on race or gender, which is just based on the experiences. There are conformity biases. There are various types of biases, right? So based on that, I believe there's an opportunity where we can have maybe a compilation of some YouTube videos that the committees can watch, some kind of training material that can help them prepare for such kind of positions. And even though these are voluntary positions, but these are important positions, because you are making really big decisions and helping the town make big decisions. So I believe that there needs to be a little bit of work.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course, as you know, that I cannot provide much more details on what was being done, but this is what my summary is, that I see some opportunities there.
Yeah, I agree.
So it sounds like maybe there should be a really intentional onboarding process for all community volunteers
Yes.
in terms of understanding anti-bias with this kind of work. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Yeah. For example, I would say that I'm just going to give an example. Let's say that Jenny, you and I have example, even though we have not worked together, right? Let's say that you and I have worked for 20 years, and therefore I shouldn't give in to all of your ideas just because we have known each other, right? Because
Right.
everybody should bring their point of view. So that's where I'm coming from. Like, people should definitely bring their point of view and not rely on others who they may have worked with, and not get influenced, because again, talk about your own ideas and what you bring to the table, and help make the committee make those decisions.
Yeah. And I think too that even in just creating a designated space and information to name the importance of recognizing bias in the processes, I think that in and of itself is important to set the tone for the work for that group to do. So I think that's a great and so where does that fall? I don't know, Anita, if you can help with that. Where that's not HR.
So I'm not, I'm trying to picture like where that would be, and I'm not really sure because like the school actually has their own HR director as well. I'm trying to think about where we might be able to have like a central location for some of this information. I'm not sure what that would look like yet. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Scott?
When you're onboarded onto a committee, you go to town hall and meet with Patty, and that would be an opportunity to at least have. I know when I did the treasurer for election, they send you to a site and you do an ethics training. They could do that when you're onboarded onto a committee also, because you have to get sworn in, you have to go to the town hall. We all did it for this, and something could be given to us if there was some training available through the state or whatever that we could do before, that you just pass it and do before you get on the committee. The other thing about the committees is I was looking it over, and I don't think it's a very user-friendly setup in terms of you look at what you can volunteer for, and then you click on that committee, and it doesn't say too much about it. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of committees that are looking for people or have openings, and it doesn't really say what the qualifications you're looking for. It's a little daunting if you're not used to doing town stuff. And if we want more people to volunteer in town, more diverse people, we have to make that a little easier. I'm not sure how, but I know I was looking, if I went on the cemetery committee, what would I do? I mean, do I clean graves? I don't know. I mean, it's not, it wasn't very clear. And I'm not trying to be super critical. I think it could be better.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that. So I'm thinking some of the stuff about the school process right now, the superintendent, there's potential that we can partner with the subcommittee for the school stuff. And even what you're saying now, Scott, about how to get more people involved, that might be the community outreach. But something I want to touch on that you brought up, which I think is really great, you're right, there's already that checkpoint of the conflict of interest training and the open meeting law training. And if we can attach or encourage attaching an anti-bias training to that, then we're going to link that into an existing checkpoint, you know, to operationalize it. So who do we?
Townwide. It has to be townwide. It has to
Yes.
be on the police department, at personnel, at
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So who oversees that conflict of interest training and open meeting law training?
Is that
Patty provides
Jody?
the information. Patty provides that. The town clerk provides that information.
Okay. So we should look into talking with her about what the process would be to re-examine what exists in that checkpoint for that information. Is there anyone who would like to? I know we have Anjali and Scott following up with HR. Joe, are you jumping at following up with town clerk? Was that hand?
Oh, no. I was about to sneeze. I'm kidding. I just wanted to, I have a little update about the Affordable Housing Committee for whenever it's ready, whenever you're ready.
Oh, yeah. We'll.
Joe, you were wonderful. What a great presentation you put on for this committee for diversity across the town. That was wonderful.
Oh, I was inspired by the committee, but yeah, I'm happy to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, we'll go to that next. Before we do, is there anyone who would like to follow up with Patty,
Actually,
the town clerk?
I'll follow up with Patty. I would like to do some more in-depth with the police department, but I also will follow. Patty will be easy.
Okay.
So Nancy, in that case, I would like to help you or the town to find those resources that could be helpful, or the links, because I use that. So at work, we of course have all those trainings built in our systems that we use, but I've also come across a lot of YouTube, some materials on the YouTube that is very helpful. But that is only helpful when somebody is searching for it or looking for it. But in day-to-day, people are just not aware that that kind of content exists, right? So
Blue Cross actually sent one out. That would be awesome. Blue Cross actually sent one to, I'm taking one tomorrow that the insurance company sent us, but I would love to do on that.
Oh, that's excellent.
That's great to know.
How could I get an access to that kind of information? That what exactly do they review or have the members review it?
I'm sorry, actually, I didn't catch what you said.
How could I get the access to what Blue Cross provides?
I'll send
so that I could just. Okay, okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. Joe, do you want to go ahead and share with us about affordable housing?
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you, Nancy. I did appreciate the chance to speak with the Affordable Housing Committee about the work of the DEI committee and to hear back from them. And in some sense, it was a really ready audience because the work of the Affordable Housing Committee really is all about inclusion. And so the group was very open and actually had some suggestions and ideas. And in response to my question, how can we help you? They had some thoughts about it and some suggestions, which was very, really gratifying. So like sort of right away, they seem to be interested in the mission. So I summarized the role and the mission of the committee. In fact, of the DEI committee. In fact, the chairman of the Affordable Housing Committee, Rob Downing, pulled up the mission, or pulled up the charge from the town website so that we could read it to everybody. He was ready to. I didn't actually call him ahead of time. He was just ready to do that. And I talked about how it was certainly part of the mission of this subcommittee to reach out to the town boards and the town departments and to encourage changes and activities that would support, the overall mission of the DEI committee to embrace diversity, to embrace belonging, but do it in an active way in the context of whatever the purpose of the particular town committee is. And we sort of agreed that working with the Affordable Housing Committee itself, embraces inclusion. Its work is inclusive, but it also, that committee itself understands that there's a stigma attached, if you will, or attaches to affordable housing. There's a stigma that might attach to folks who seek it. And so that was also gratifying that that's something that committee is really aware of and is inspired to, I think, benefit from whatever guidance or frameworks that we can provide, or even language that we can provide that would help it to even enhance further its ability to be inclusive. The response that I got, there were a couple of responses. One was to make sure that we not only thought about ways that we can enhance the way that affordable housing efforts build inclusion and embrace diversity, but also to remember that committee has close ties with the town's housing for elderly residents. And so working with seniors, there's ageism is something that we face in this town and everywhere. And so that was another aspect that I hadn't thought about. It was really good to hear. And so they wanted us to make sure that was incorporated into our work, if you will. And they encouraged me to reach out to Chris Klutchman, who used to work for the town, but now works for the Department of Housing and Community Development, to just see how other affordable housing committees might have across the state or other housing trust committees have approached this issue. What framework do they work within? And then I did have a couple of emails back to me from a couple of other members about the way that we can help. And I think that continues. That's a dialogue that continues. And I look forward to the next meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee. But one of the suggestions was to work with that committee to promote some specific opportunities to help folks in a certain income range move into Westford, to make housing stock not only affordable for the folks below 80% of median income, for example, but above it as well, and between 80 and 120%. So they were thinking, I think, pretty strategically too, in terms of how we can help. And that, again, I really appreciated that. So it was a very specific idea. I do think that what can grow out of these kinds of conversations with other committees like the Affordable Housing Committee is, and I haven't formed this up too much in my mind so far, but I think that if we can offer committees like it they're sort of operating along a spectrum in terms of the way that they actively promote diversity and inclusion. But if we can sort of figure out a way to provide them with a framework that enhances their work, by its nature, helping people move into Westford, into housing that's affordable, is, I think, naturally inclusive, right? I think that you do build diversity across the community in that way. But the question is it enough just to let that happen, or can we figure out ways, in particular with this committee, to foster even more diversity among the people who are seeking to live here in affordable housing? So that's just something I'm thinking about, and whether other committees can benefit. And I was reminded of it when you were talking, Scott, and others, about the onboarding piece. Is that, it seems like it makes sense to have a statement that people who take the oath to be on a committee would need to be, conversant in, and that should happen actually probably more than once, right, in the life of a volunteer. But so it's that kind of thing. How can we help sort of in an intentional way raise awareness so that the activities of committees sort of are embedded with ways to foster more inclusiveness. In the case of and I'll stop now, in the case of the Affordable Housing Committee, how do you enhance even the diversity that already happens because of the activity of building affordable housing? So I think the conversation continues with that group, and I think it's been really helpful to me. And so my initial thoughts are there are ways to help them specifically, but also I think that from those conversations we can learn how we can help other committees. And I'd love to hear if anybody else has spoken to a committee. But those are my initial impressions.
Anita?
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really great meeting. Thank you for the recap for that. You know, when you were talking about the older adults in town and seniors and affordable housing, and Nancy might be able to speak to this because I know she's on the Council on Aging. But when I was running for my select board position, I actually reached out to the Cameron Senior Center and learned a lot about affordable housing or unaffordable housing for our seniors in town, and just kind of touching on the disability population and just the, sort of how what they're able to afford isn't really what's here in Westford. And there's some opportunities, I think, for checkpoints for, like a certain percentage of higher density housing might be dedicated towards affordable housing, but sort of what's the follow-up after people move in and out, sort of that turnover? Are you still making sure that there's a certain percentage still dedicated to affordable housing? Kind of understanding that part a little bit more. That's an area that I'm not very familiar with, but maybe trying to figure out, is there a way to build that into the policy? And I know that the Cameron Senior Center is really, really busy right now, everyone is, but it'd be really interesting to, I think, to explore that a little bit more, to understand that, like the real nitty gritty details of how that plays out in real life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Anita, to answer that, we do follow up. Jennifer prepares a spreadsheet that I'll be glad to get to you, where we follow up with Princeton Properties, all of the multi developments that have the affordable units as they turn over. We get reports of how many are there. I know Abbott Mills sends an email out and lets us know the minute one is available so that we can forward that to people on the list. The CHAMP program that the state is using now to put them in does help us pick from anywhere in the state on the list. It's not just Westford. The new housing that is going in does give some local preference, but that does not exclude us from reaching out to other areas to diversify the population that way. Mm-hmm. We do have 2 affordable elderly units coming up, the Helena Crocker on 110, and now hopefully Town Farm with 34 more units that would be great for affordable senior housing. It's a good opportunity.
But it was really interesting learning from the social workers, just like the application process and how burdensome and cumbersome and just really difficult it is, all the hurdles, all the paperwork. But I know that's bigger than Westford though, but just trying to figure out how we could channel our advocacy a little bit, or who we need to talk to, just another.
David Hedison is actually working on that application to simplify. So that is a horrible process at this moment. He's the head of Chelmsford Housing, but also Choice, which is what's developing in Westford. Scott?
Awesome.
When I do title exams, that's what I do. When you get an affordable unit, that is noted on the title exam. Right. And I'm not sure what happens after that, but I do note it. And the attorneys should be aware of that. So they shouldn't be sold. I mean, there are some checks to it. It's not legally Wild West kind of thing.
They are offered at affordable. We did lose one recently that there was no candidate for, that after a certain period of time they are allowed to sell it for market value if there is no affordable candidate come. So it's on us to find people to buy them, the qualified applicants to buy them. And that's where we could probably help more with that. There could be a better process to help get the word out. But Lisa at the Housing Authority, our director, maintains the list of the housing in Westford and and what ones we own, what ones are low income and have to stay low income, or hopefully stay low income.
Westford has done a really good job with reaching the state requirement of 10%. It's over, right? It's almost, I think it's 14% of housing stock. And so that's sort of a feather in our cap, but nobody in the housing committee wants to stop there. You know what I mean? I think.
Well, it's nowhere near enough. That's why.
Right.
We have almost 500 Westford people on the list. There's over 1,300 on the list right now for truly affordable housing, which is the 30%. So.
Right. So I think, you know, just those thoughts about reaching out to different entities, reaching out to, say, some nonprofits or people who would be able to let a diverse set of folks, you know, say from Lowell or other places, know about these opportunities is probably one thing. And will be probably part of the conversation that we have next week next month at the Affordable Housing Committee meeting.
Common Ground does a lot of that. Steve Jonkus does a wonderful job with that.
Great, out of Lowell.
I have a question. Do you also contact Community Teamwork Incorporated? Because I know they do a lot in that area.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, Joe, are you comfortable with kind of continuing to be our liaison to affordable housing? It sounds like you're doing a phenomenal job.
I am comfortable with it, and there, you know, it was interesting. One of the items that they suggested was, and I'm not sure we're at this point yet, and I hope I'm taking this the right way from one of the members. I'm looking at an email that we would support any proposals, etc., to the zoning board of appeals or the planning boards in town that we would sort of join with, if you will, you know, in this sort of hypothetical scenario with the Affordable Housing Committee in its you know, application for resources or changes in zoning or other things that would promote affordable housing, that we would support that in a certain way. Don't know what form that takes, but I thought it was an interesting idea. You know, is there sort of a collaboration among committees that could ensue, include, you know, involving the DEI?
Right.
So.
Right, which sounds like it would go to like our large committee, which if there was something that let's say they would bring it to our subcommittee and we feel that it would make sense for the larger committee, we could bring it to the larger committee. But certainly, I think that's a two-way street. I think we would want to vet it to make sure it's something that we would support. But
Absolutely.
if that does align, then yeah, I'm all for that. So I just want to be mindful of time because we are
Oh goodness.
coming close. I know we're coming close to our end. I think so we've identified a couple of really good priority areas. I think the one that we haven't discussed yet, and maybe we won't necessarily discuss it now because of time, but obviously police. Nancy, you pulled all that information. Do we maybe want to do we want to kind of go through some of that stuff to maybe discuss at our next meeting, dig into a little bit of the police stuff, like what we were digging into other stuff tonight?
I think certainly I need to read more of it, and I know Anjali said she would like to do it also, so perhaps she
and I would love to do that too, because I know from the school side, I am particularly interested in the SRO. We just appointed the new SRO with Detective Pavao becoming sergeant. Now we have Detective Bernardin. And so that's something that I think is really interesting too. So I would love to jump in on that as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to add here, so I already reviewed the documentation that was provided, Nancy. I would like to see if they have any additional documents or trainings, because the policy that you shared with me, that's a good policy to begin with, but how often do they go through it, right? How often are they reminded of these other things?
Sent me some more at the end of the day with their schedule, with what they're required to take on the yearly basis from the state, what they're required to take. their own policy for what they have to take for classes. So maybe the three of us could offline do that, or we can get it all.
Yeah. Because I know that there was a training that Detective Bernardin did very recently before, because he starts full time after this week. And I believe that training was being provided through the Massachusetts Association of Police Chiefs. Right. So I'm just curious to know what that training entails, to try and better understand how we're training all of our police staff. Excellent. So we'll work on that for next time. And
can we share some of it?
Yes, well, I'll share it all with you.
Is that something that we'll do through email, or is that something we'll post, or how are we going to share documents?
You know, I think it probably should be email amongst the group at this point.
I think the first round is really going to be us kind of picking through these things. And at some point, we're going to identify certain sections that we want to discuss. And when we get to that point, I think we will include those in a meeting packet for a meeting, so that we're all able to discuss a certain chunk of information. I think it would be overkill to put all of this information in a meeting packet. I think we're not quite there yet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
What he said, I'm sorry, Jenny, is we also take opportunities such as fair and impartial police training. I'll send you this, Angela. He sent a whole list of things that they do that is not in that. And then the three of us, and then we'll have it ready for the next meeting. Right, Jen?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That sounds great. That sounds great. So hold on, I'm going to share the.
To say something.
Broken again.
How am I now?
Anita wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anita.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring us back to, like, you know, we're doing so much work and a lot of outreach and a lot of reviewing, and it's a lot of energy, right? But I guess I get confused sometimes about, like, what is our end goal right now for this initiative, or like these efforts? So are we so we're reviewing these policies, but what are we going to do with that? Or what are we trying to do? Is it just to see where there are opportunities for, like, where we might see something based on, like, you know, what we know, or what are we
I think first off, Anita, we're going to look and see what there is so we can understand where we need to go from there, and then suggest to you or the board any places after reviewing it that we think this would be a good opportunity to include whatever we come up with.
Okay.
I think that's it. So we have to understand what is there to begin with, and at least with the police, there's a copious amount of documentation for us to weed through to see what there is there that they're doing.
Yeah, and I think
questions.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think we need to dig through this stuff first so that we're informed enough to have conversations with these different departments and boards, and then have a conversation to better understand it and kind of try and discuss where opportunities might be. And then eventually, I think, you know, just as Nancy said, we would make recommendations to the board in terms of we've done our homework, we've talked with them, and here's what we see as some good recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me, like kind of reading to know what's there and stuff. But I feel like as you're reviewing, if there's a question that, you know, you're trying to answer, it's helpful to kind of target, you know, like focus it, but maybe that's for the next step. That's not for this point.
So for example, Anita, I think that's a very good question that you asked. What is our end goal as a subcommittee? And as we are reviewing, I'm finding, even when I said that when I was a part of the pre-selection committee for the superintendent search, right, I observed that there are some opportunities. So as a board, we can come up with a plan or a suggestion to include some kind of a training, either in the onboarding of the volunteers or whatnot. So it's all about studying what exactly is in place right now, and how as a committee we can help in proposing the countermeasures that can help the town towards its diversity and inclusion initiatives overall.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. John, did you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to note a caution here. As you're trading documents back and forth across the committee, you might want to just take another look at the open meeting law. There's some issues when you start communicating in groups and discussing this and sharing that information. Either it should be in a packet that's open to research or to the public, but it's just a caution. I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I just kind of caution you on that.
Thank you, John. Yeah, that's a good point. I think it does stand to clarify that we're not going to have discussions about all of these things. It's just some of the materials. Yeah, some of the materials, each of us will take an opportunity to review individually, and any of the discussions will take place in these meetings, and then the pertinent sections will be placed in meeting packets for those meeting-based discussions. So thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so is there anything else? I'm looking at the agenda. I think it's probably pretty clear what Nancy and I are going to bring as an update back to the general meeting next week. So let's just go ahead. Our next meeting, and when I look at my calendar, 2 weeks from tonight would be March 2nd. So I'm going to propose 7 p.m. on March 2nd. Does anyone have any conflicts there?
Nope, that's fine. Just asking quickly, do we have the full committee meeting on coming Wednesday?
Yes, the 24th, I believe.
Yeah, I will not be able to attend, and then I'll send an email out to those people.
Yeah, just let them know. Great. All right, so we will meet again as a subcommittee 2 weeks from tonight, 7 p.m. on March 2nd, and we will see each other again next week on Wednesday for the full committee meeting. Do I have a motion? Oh, go ahead.
It's Diane. Just to jump in, I did have the same reaction Anita did about focus and boiling the ocean, so to speak, because there's so many different areas, and you pull one thread and you get on that avenue and you're down the next. So understanding what you're looking for and being finite on that, I really do think and agree that it is critical. I mean, if you're looking for example, training, is there, training that includes, non-bias, inclusiveness, et cetera, that's fairly finite. It's you could look through the different departments and town and committees to see if there is existing training, what there is, and that benefits, and that's fairly focused. But other areas may be really fuzzy and just going around in circles. So it's just a big ocean out there.
Yeah.
with lots of opportunities,
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a balance between necessary focus, but also I think at the early stages being open-minded to see what's there and determine where those areas of focus might be. So, but definitely I agree. Throwing all of our energy out there in an unfocused way will probably just leave us spinning our wheels. So I appreciate that. All right, so we've gone a few minutes. What was that, Diane?
I'm sorry, it's all good stuff. It's just you've got limited resources and everybody has limited time and you want to be efficient. Sure. And that's all,
Sure. Appreciate it very much. Thank y'all. We have gone a few minutes over, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All right. Anybody opposed? Okay, that's a wrap. Unanimous. Let's have a great evening. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Donna, I
Good
sent
night.
you
Bye.
the appendix.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Donna, I sent you all the attendance.
Thank you.
Nancy, I think you can stop the recording now.
And stop.
This conference will now be recorded.
No.